Hello, my name is Jacob Scher, and my partner is Matthew Kleeman, and this is our ONR project on DDoS defense using next-generation firewalls. I wanted to thank Professor Krishigno and our advisor Ali Muslim for providing us with this opportunity and assistance throughout the project. The agenda for this presentation is to provide background information on DOS attacks and firewalls, state our project objective, provide our two solutions, and ending with a conclusion to summarize. So DOS attack stands for denial of service, which is a type of cyber attack which utilizes all the resources of an important device like a router or firewall in order to render it unavailable or inoperable for legitimate purposes. There are many different types of DOS attacks, and this project focuses on three of them specifically. A TCP SYN flood attack uses the SYN packet of the TCP three-way handshake to start and open many different connections, but never closing them, leaving all the available ports open and unusable. The ICMP flood uses the ICMP protocol to make requests, generally using the ping command, causing the server to use some of its resources to process and reply to each ICMP packet individually, and the large number of packets uses up the system's resources. Finally, UDP flood attacks use the UDP protocol to send large numbers of UDP packets, which the server must process and check if there are any programs listening for the packet, and respond that there is none using ICMP packets. Now, firewalls are the network devices which work to protect the network through monitoring the inbound and outbound packets. Firewalls can be stateless, meaning they only consider packet headers when filtering traffic, or stateful, which consider the state of the connections as well as the packet information when filtering traffic. Next-generation firewalls are more advanced versions of stateful firewalls that come with more advanced capabilities that can be used to prevent the previously mentioned attacks. Specifically, Palo Alto next-generation firewalls are used in this project. Our project objective is to use a Palo Alto next-generation firewall to protect a network against the TCP SYN flood, ICMP flood, and UDP flood DOS attacks. So Palo Alto firewalls have multiple ways to protect against these DOS attacks, which include zone protection profiles and DOS protection profiles. Both of these methods allow us to use the firewall to detect, log, and block the three mentioned attacks. The logs are especially important because they have information about these attacks, like when they happen, the type of attacks, the source and destination addresses, and the action the firewall took to prevent them. The first method of stopping these attacks is configuring zone protection profiles. These are the sets of security rules that can be assigned to the security zones defined by the Palo Alto next-generation firewalls. The configurable parameters are the alarm rate, which determines how many connections need to be initiated before being logged. Activate, which determines when the chosen action will be enabled to mitigate the attack. And maximum, which determines how many connections can be made before the rest are all dropped no matter what. The action for the SYN flood includes either SYN cookies, which replies to the SYN request without having to have a specific connection open, and random early drop, which just drops packets before a queue can be filled up rather than dropping them after it fills. Only SYN flood protection can use the SYN cookies action. The others always use random early drop. The other method to prevent these attacks is to use DOS protection profiles. These are more specialized sets of security policies which provide more granular control on mitigating DOS attacks on specific systems. These flood protections include the same action, alarm rate, activate, and maximum parameters, and the block duration parameter specifies how long to prevent connections from a specific source IP after it's been blocked. The Resources Protection tab provides us the number of concurrent connections allowed to a device before new connections are dropped. These can be applied to a group of devices using the aggregate type or specific devices using the classified type. In conclusion, DOS attacks aim to overwhelm a target machine and its resources to render it inoperable. Next-generation firewalls provide defenses against these attacks. This project utilized both zone protection profiles for more generalized protection and DOS protection profiles for more granular protection. By the end of this project, we were able to detect, log, and block TCP SYN flood, ICMP flood, and UDP flood DOS attacks.
Hello, my name is Matthew Kleeman, and today I'll be demonstrating to you all the use of zone protection profiles and DOS protection profiles with new generation firewalls in order to protect against different types of attacks, such as flood attacks and DOS attacks, which include SYN attacks, ICMP attacks, UDP attacks, and more. But the use of the zone protection profile and DOS protection profile, it allows users to protect against all the different types of flood attacks that are known in today's in today's cyber world. First, we'll work with zone protection profiles. We first make our zone protection profile. We then assign it to our zone. And while making our zone protection profile, we can have it do many things, such as protecting against flood attacks, reconnaissance attacks, packet-based attacks, a protocol protection, and Ethernet. For example, with flood protection, we can have a SYN protection against, or we can have a flood protection against a SYN attack or a SYN flood. So, like for example, if we set the alarm rate, so the amount of packets I'll go through before setting off the alarm for the flood protection, and then like how I said earlier, we can then have it connected to the user's net. We can also have it, in addition to having it detect against SYN attacks, we can have it detect, like I said earlier, against the different types of reconnaissance attacks. And for example, like we can protect against a record, a record routing ping, so a ping that will determine like open ports, open routes, and it can even be used, like for example, it can also be used to protect against TCP port pings, which will protect, which can be used to help determine which ports are currently non protected by the firewall. So, for example, now if we were to perform a SYN flood attack with our current firewall being applied, with our current uh, zone protection profile being applied to our zone, if we were to now go back to the zone or go back to the firewall and then go to monitor, we'll see traffic has gone in, even though the traffic's all been cleared, and then you'll see the threat ID TCP flood showing that it's been registered by the zone protection. And that's one of the major benefits. Zone protection is generally meant to protect against majority of the different types of attacks and protect against the different types of reconnaissance that attackers use. We'll next be discussing about the DOS protection profile. With a DOS protection profile, you would first have to go to objects and create a DOS object or a DOS protection object. Okay, so after clearing that, declaring the firewall again, you'll then go to create a new DOS protection profile, which we would say protect session max. Here we can allocate different things such as like the number of sessions a user can have, as well as the whether or not it can protect against the different types of flood attacks. Even though DOS protection profiles do protect against flood protection, um, in general, a zone protection provides more variety into how to protect against any general type of attack caused by a cyber threat. So after creating uh, the object, we will then have to make a DOS protection rule where we would then give the defined amount. So, for example, if we were to go to, so for here, like we would start, like give a name, internal protection, determine the source, usernet, destination, extranet option action we want it to protect, and then use the profile uh, session protect session max, then define the address, and then hit OK. Then make sure the zone protection file doesn't hinder by turning it off temporarily, and then committing. We'll then see that with this, we're able to not only apply a protection against a protection for resource allocation, allowing for a more efficient use of resources amongst users, as well as against those who are trying to access different types of services or servers. With the use of DOS, it protects against DOS attacks that highly influence the resources of each server. So now, as we see, after committing the changes to the firewall, if we go back and perform a SYN flood, we'll not only see that the DOS zone protection protect against the SYN flood. So if we go to monitor, we'll see that numerous events had occurred. If we go to threat, we'll also see that in addition to it being able to protect against the flood attacks, but we're also able to stop the session limit from going over. So the different, to me, a DOS protection zone or DOS protection profile is generally meant to, in addition to stopping flood attacks, is used to allocate resources according to proper requirements. For while a zone protection profile is generally meant to protect against different attacks in general. And that ranges from flood attacks to reconnaissance attack, packet based attacks, and more. I hope this demonstration has been helpful to you all, and this will conclude this demonstration. I hope you all have a nice day.